Mateo lost his entire ranch because his own brother sold the dirt right out from under his boots. You think your family's loyal until a copper mine offers them a way out of a dark secret. But a piece of paper from 1890 changed the whole game. I watched the trucks roll in while I sat right here on this porch. I know exactly how Mateo broke his brother and beat the corporation. First of all, the noise started before the sun even hit the horizon. Mateo jumped out of bed because 30 industrial engines hummed on his north pasture. As a result, he grabbed his old Winchester and ran outside in his long johns. He expected to find trespassers. Instead, he found a line of yellow bulldozers parked on his grass. Now, you might be thinking he just called the sheriff. Actually, the sheriff was already there, standing next to the lead driver. The lawman didn't look at Mateo. Suddenly, the foreman stepped forward with a clipboard in his hand. Mateo realized the men weren't lost. Next thing you know, the foreman handed Mateo a stack of legal documents. Mateo read the names on the contract, but he only recognized one of them. His brother Oscar signed away the mineral rights for the entire section. Mateo's hand shook, so he demanded to know how his brother sold something they owned together. The foreman pointed to a signature on a power of attorney form. Indeed, it looked like Mateo's own handwriting, but Mateo never signed a single thing for Oscar. He looked at the sheriff for help. Surprisingly, the sheriff just told Mateo to move his cattle or lose them. Meanwhile, I remembered seeing Oscar 2 weeks ago out by the dry creek. He sat in a black sedan with Clarence, the man who runs the mining company. I knew Oscar hated Clarence, yet they sat together for over an hour. I didn't see any money change hands during that meeting. I know you're wondering why I didn't say anything sooner. To be honest, I thought they were just arguing about the old county election. But Oscar looked terrified when he climbed out of that car. He walked like a man who just saw his own ghost. Shortly after that, Mateo drove straight to the casino where Oscar spent most of his time. He found Oscar sitting at a slot machine with an empty bucket. Mateo grabbed him by the collar, but Oscar wouldn't look him in the eye. As a result, Mateo left his brother in the lobby and drove to Oscar's small house. He kicked the front door open because he needed answers. He tore through the desk and the cabinets. Then again, he didn't find any bank statements or hidden cash. He found a locked metal box under the floorboards in the closet. Actually, let me put it this way. The box didn't hold money. It held a police report from 1955. Mateo read about an accidental shooting at the old quarry. Oscar was the one who pulled the trigger. However, the report said the case was closed by a young deputy named Clarence. Now, you might be thinking a 50-year-old accident doesn't matter, but Clarence kept that original file to use as a leash. He told Oscar he would reopen the case unless Oscar signed the ranch over. Oscar chose his freedom over his brother's land. Mateo felt the betrayal in his chest. So, Mateo drove to the mining headquarters to face Clarence. He threw the police report on the big mahogany desk. Clarence just laughed and lit a cigar. He told Mateo the machines would start digging at noon. Regardless of the report, the deed was already recorded at the county office. Clarence threatened to put Oscar in a cell by sunset if Mateo interfered. Mateo looked at the clock on the wall. He had exactly 4 hours before the first drill hit the soil. He walked out without saying another word. Suddenly, Mateo remembered something his father told him when they were kids. The old man never trusted banks or county offices. He told the boys the real proof of the land was kept where the land began. Mateo drove back to the ranch at 90 miles an hour. He headed for the north fence line. He reached the corner post that sat on the boundary of Greenlee County. He used a crowbar to pry the cap off the heavy cedar wood. I watched him from a kitchen window. He reached deep into the hollow center. In fact, he pulled out a rusted tin tube. Inside, he found a piece of parchment from the original Spanish land grant. This document stated that the mineral rights and the surface rights could never be separated. It was a covenant that overrode any modern contract. In other words, Oscar had no legal right to sell the copper underneath. I know you're wondering if a piece of old paper can stop a bulldozer. Mateo didn't wait for the mining lawyers to agree. He called the state land office in Phoenix. He told the mining company was violating a protected historical grant. Just then, the bulldozers started their engines again. The foreman told his men to drop the blades into the dirt. Mateo stood right in front of the lead machine. He held the tin tube over his head. The sheriff moved in to handcuff him. But then a black and white state vehicle roared up the driveway. The state marshal stepped out with a temporary restraining order. He told the crew to shut down the engines immediately. The mining company didn't have the right to touch a single rock. Eventually, the lawyers confirmed the Spanish grant was still valid. The contract Oscar signed became worthless. Clarence lost millions in equipment fees and legal costs. As for Oscar, the statute of limitations had passed on that old shooting anyway. He gave up the ranch for a threat that wasn't even real. Mateo kept the land, but he changed the locks on every gate. He never invited Oscar back for Sunday dinner. The mining company packed up and left Greenlee County for good. Money talks, but that old dirt stayed right where it belonged. Mateo saved his home, but he lost the only brother he had left. It's funny how a little bit of copper in the ground can turn blood into ice. Would you forgive a brother who tried to sell your life to keep a secret? Tell me what you would do in the comments. You need to see what happened next, and everyone thought this marriage was going south.